I'll start with some short ones. Can you hear me? Good? All right. So these will be in the chapter. Spring, open us. Caught rehearsing inanities like confrontational happiness. That worry is what makes me one with frankly sexual rhetoric, swaddled, dragging strings, stability in rows of speaking slings. Clean and jerk and reinflate our metric tantrum chanting. Bread and roses in the street, snot, love, snot, hate, depreciate. Backstroke flags, be truthful. There's bad stuff out there. Show some appreciation of complaint. This is a chaparral song. I can't stop leaning on you like a hug, jerked on its foundation. I have become a balance beam. I hate my love me pants and words. You pivot and sidestep the pine plank, mine. I've measured them from night to night. Tiny ponds of splooge gleam in hawk strip light. 1980s. What you have is a void that walks me backward and the church steps in my place. What I have is relief that you have long legs too. I've been working in the superstructure right into the press too long with what I think I can't say to the party or won't, but then will and do. The city was at least 50% racist then, and now it's all more housing, lies, or sex class, and worse, people class. You know more about me than about the jargon I take on in the name of science. Oh, 1980s, change that, please. It happened. It's a currency in language to have at it still and stronger, and now folks are working harder than a dormouse to end hunger. These rudiments of polis come in fact later and longer, though their prescience felt originary ruse or still much longer. If not still higher, well, then it's still calibrated, camper, and something quite specific bangs and bellows through the damper. And slower still, but never still, it sneaks into my hamper, so laundry time brings back what was encrusted neath the Pampers. Well, okay, baby, Uncle Sam's returned, happy to bring you books, nightlights, and blankets, make it easier to sing you, feeling bubbly when I'm called out, so to say, after disaster that I never meant for loss, to turn out vengeful so much faster than the loss only imagined had it coming, all I'd tell them. Now the moths are stuck to walls, they leave brown dust prints on the vellum. Beyond beauty then, they were, till wrenched together into packets, then uncloaked and crushed to powders, smacked and sprayed out of our rackets. So these are some bits that I'm currently working on as part of a bigger project, which has been sort of referred to. And the first part of that was, which I'll read a tiny bit of after this, is dealing with my grandfather's testimony before the Senate Special Subcommittee on Communism in the New York City Trades Unions. So I've been working through a number of sort of documents, and here are two documents that I made out of them. So document 1. Oh, and they're also from his FBI. Let's be clear. The headliner is the document. This is not a polemical stance. It is merely the volume of history smashing what little I chose to say. I have at times committed the crime of lyric fluency, and now I'd better prawn up to being a serious person. My utter indifference is not even a decent lie. Try again, it's something, quite, to apprehend so many details and their interrelations. So is that documentary? No more questions, each a way to be struck dumb, and there are many, and many interject. Instead, I will be wowed by an orchestra, neither didactically appreciating what a disciplined collective can achieve horizontally, nor fearing its implementation by force. It's not that this is testament to some great excess of what is, but that we are undeserving of that gory story that left centuries to the side as aberrations or latencies. I can muster a happy birthday smile through the tremendous anxiety at being wrong and at that having no consequences, which is not so far off from packing to go on a mid-length trip. Now, figure those pragmatics. Now, I'll incorporate your critique. Yum, 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 yum. Now, another parent's permission consoles. Now, I'll take this one for truth. Now, I'm biting off a one-man strike and slurring the global chatter with the wrong papers to inherit it all unlegislated. Even my DNA is an FBI file and some kind-hearted memories, never mind for telling, were extra legally digitized, and now all the decades have gone down the shore. A paper trail of nothing. The subject's neighbor advised that the subject and his family are away for the summer, said she did not know where they were but believed them to have rented a cottage in Rockaway, Queens, New York, and will probably return when the regular school semester begins. It is noted that the school semester begins approximately the second week in September, and since the present address of this subject is unknown, efforts to interview the subject will not be made until the second week in September or until it is ascertained that the subject has returned to his permanent residence. In paper trail of nothing. What they'll show shows they have no idea what they're doing. I mean, really, how many pretext phone calls can you get shouted out of? I mean, it is noticed that the school semester begins approximately the second week in September. Someone actually wrote that in the secret files of a government agency. Modeling a social theory of orchestration on this postcoital tristesse would perhaps be better than on blue balls, but not by much. From now on, when I close my eyes, I'll know the provenance of each part and stick to that. It's like sheet music, but orchestration may no longer mean anything if we can just rush the stage. Now, imagine the slaughter. Do you picture this like the symphony, or like you're in a dark green vinyl lazy boy with your eyes closed? That's more vivid, but I can't make either for you. It's just a metaphor, after all, and I'm still young. I've got to hang out first. And this is the second document. 35 years later, send a third generation request. At least we'll say we're sending it. It's probably the same FBI shit, purely conceptual writing. Looking for a really human sign in these redaction paintings is risible, no matter that someone probably scared stiff and also living did this too. My issue is a redder shout, an older red and lines bled out of broader strokes into just facades of struggle and an inverse tedium called documentary, called FBI file for family history. Examine distinct mechanisms of yes and no, make the dead quaint, or else sprout the tedious details, opaque facts of dissent, and these ridiculous feelings of scholarship. Name redacted furnished information on January 29, 1958, which certified that Nathan Solomon was issued International Workers' Order Certificate number 240008 in Lodge number 138 in May 1939, was transferred to Lodge number 607 on an unknown date, was expelled in March 1st, 1947, was reinstated in June 1947, was expelled in March 1948, was reinstated in April 1948, was expelled in September 1948, was reinstated in October 1948, was expelled in September 1949, was reinstated in December 1949, was expelled in September 1950, was reinstated in March 1951, and paid through September 1953. Here's an axiom. There is no possibility for anything called revolutionary inheritance. So how can we reproduce a line? And what kind of line does that indicate? A proposition. The lyric line slides too easily into lamentation if it's over one syllable but less than 3 inches long. From now on, that middle range will be forbidden from verse. Now, I've got some hazy sense of lyric fingered like the sense. Maybe you'll sense I have something in mind. I certainly have no idea, but that's not what something means. Lyric is like line, but isn't it? Still, read aloud, it rather resembles bad acting. I mean, line please. But the line isn't waiting. When I say I'm writing, what I'm doing is saying that I'm not doing some other thing, and I can't ever do it the same. Not doing, that is, but it's still samey. The banal sheerness of washed out light is fallacious, not pathetic. No, it's affective, but not fallacious. Really, it might name a set of coinciding or distinct peculiarities. Has small mustache, width of nose. And these are some of the lyrics from the other part that I mentioned. I'm not going to read the actual testimony, just the sort of echo lyrics, a few of them. False analogy between patriarchy and state power is history. It's not resemblance, not always the world historical defeat of the female sex, but it also sometimes is just that affects the answers we can give, rights we have inherited and skipped over. Dialectically re-engage some things are not surprising, but still, the best response might be to strike inheritance. Because males were less attached to the matriarchal gens, they began to notice their own property, and so it should be no surprise to you that my Aboriginal myth ends in blacklist. Authority to receive on behalf of the rest. Mass action, the only weapon, institutes strategic necessity or emotional need. Allegations of a personality Antigone could not be a social democrat on this showing. A perpetual opposition, the only way to be known and loved at all costs. Neither sign nor receive checks on anyone's behalf. Always refuse office. It was just the other way around. They elect bodies to guide amorphous bodies to be a massive body. I agree with you, your general thoughts on that subject, that that's the purpose of leadership. Oath meaning order, pertaining to testimony. Right, there is no equal footing, associate member of state, international organization with gavel. I didn't understand. I don't see any gavel. No hearing loss in evidence, only memory, or a series of tests and equalizing measures. Hold your nose and blow smoke from your blowhole into contextless diagnostic air. Shake hands with counsel and blow oaths from every orifice with some small business that has standing orders still pertaining to a gavel. Blow what if you meant me to stop? However self-limited and vowed to consultation and petty compromise, it is an audacious presumption for a man to get into any position over his fellows. A central plank is the right to trial by jury in postures of radical inheritance. Everything we believe could be contained in the word feminist. Get it clear on the record, not only moved for its adoption, but required it to talk the floor into a discussion. In an instant, some member from the floor took the floor and made a motion. File affidavit for the report board. This is total admin, people. Strike items from speech, rights from legal meetings, claim items for law, strike didactic anti-labor time is stricken. Court reporters for the aristocracy of labor want us to know the difference between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., between straight time and overtime, is the real opposite of straight time, not queer time, but alien physics. If you work part-time, you cannot be excused from service, right? You can't be most emphatic about everything. not just that you don't want to work at all and labor time is a dead end. If I can find it. Well, hands strike as a matter of record. Just strike hands well as a matter of fact. Well, used as an interjection and an expression of surprise, this is nothing to say compared to just rewritten surprise. Well, what is the situation? Rank it well. Come in my catheter, I mean cathedral. Say colostomy bag, and try to collect, I mean organize the nurses. Always sing Joe Hill well. I remember very little. Ranks were closing, hands joined now. It was embarrassing. I was 11 and my father's knuckles were all busted from fighting thugs. Was he one? There's a lot that I don't know holding them now. And I'll read the poem Life of Riley, just a bit longer. Well, longer than the short ones, anyway. Invitations and an enjambment, doors shut softly, are no less indignant, but it never was dignity we're after. The unsupported mothers group is smart to squat as tactic, but the unsupported mothers group was forced to squat as tactic, and that just might be true for longer than it's interesting. Fen access is restricted to pastry, thanks. A fussy repose in being right, or in saying I was right. Well, there's a difference in it. Do notice the eventual eviction by King's College from the house. They laugh because they know they're untouchable, not because what I said was wrong. They're kinds of grasses that you split open down the middle, whistling anyway, or can't turn me away, I believe, in your heart. But then you tell me all our lives are also knives, or else your rectitude, I don't mean mine, won't it look shameful? Each is claiming material conditions for the analytical framework. There won't be proof of what is really happening if I'm not there. May I still care whether you come or not. The real movement of history is also at and has also been in the dead left, which continues as material force or only irrelevant reaction. You would say that. I know you do it all the time, and then return to what we all know so much. Why don't we just write it down? We probably do mean the leadership of the most oppressed and not merely of the oppressed workers, and that fuck all anxiety about being right is ours to share is a bad comfort, he says. I hate it and love you, but isn't it more to hate the center since we don't all sin the same? Windbag, money bags, cat bag, can bag. I too can rail against it and forsake it in the interest of positions, sometimes happy at this point, but not for blocks of fact. If I don't get a job, will I walk my cat on a leash? Neither doleful, never, when we'd rather compose. The world is full of Rileys, no matter what their name. I had some more pieces and lost them. Naturally, being a father in this hectic world and coping with the problems of teenage youth is a bewildering task for even the most intelligent of us. Some of us, you might need some comfort and happiness so that we can struggle, all of us. You are already smashed to pieces, music. You still inspire me to write poetry to you just the way you did on our first death march into transition, and now the American Meat Institute brings you the life of Riley. In a moment, we'll hear more of how Riley handles his oncoming mother-in-law. Take any mother-in-law, scrape the in-law off her, and what do you got? Suddenly mild, this is Ken Niles speaking for meat. Those people across an ocean where I reached for my talismanic tail, that bar of metal that split my tongue, it fell out in a casserole. Blossoming as sustained, detailed practice, perception as meow. That dog, as feathery, considered not ontically but veronically, but not veronical enough. So read to me your Laurie's tale. Sing to me your starfish, snail. Tell me how an oyster and clam aren't real family, or there's not much to do when your friends are all fish. Okay, stop singing now, handsome. Cohabitation means consist in scarcity of sources. Call me fish. They've confirmed that I am human in this firefighter parking, and your concepts is a trap. Give two-word answers and reread the text aloud. Refuse to explain. But up in his den, my bachelor chum, but now is not to charm a chap. If I say we live there, I say I will not, for we live in the ghost of the old house now. But now is not to charm a ghost. Not to make you feel it, if I could, as if I did already, but in all the things I might say, if you were a chatbot who imagines me thinking, that might not mean you think it. You reject the premise, tap your fingers, groan and sigh. It's not easy to make a fin of sense when I do break like a machine. That's not everybody's femininity, to render unto you what's yours. The dead goat made you vomit. Reject the premise, the remainder will infuriate. The premise is we live in the ghost of the old house now. Your concepts is a trap, so I give two-word answers and reread the text aloud. Refuse to explain. My accountability to my practice is my petty bourgeois plan fucking B.